Welcome everyone to the LAMC Publishing and Opportunities in 2021 panel. Very happy to have this group here. I know some of you very, very well, and we're going to have a great conversation. My name is Julio Bagué. I work with Pure Music. Pure Music is an independent publisher founded in 1927, and we're in 30 countries, and we've been around for a while. And I run U.S. Latin and Puerto Rico, East Coast, U.S. Latin and Puerto Rico. So I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves, and let's see. This panel is sponsored actually by Songtrust. So we'll have Molly introduce herself first.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Julio. And hi, everybody. I'm so happy to join you. My name is Molly Newman. I'm coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. I'm the president of Songtrust. Songtrust is a global music publishing administrator. We work with 350,000 individual writers, and we represent about 3 million copyrights around the world. And I'm so happy to be here.
Excellent, excellent. And then next here, I'm going to go through my boxes. I have Mari Nunez from Warner Chappell here with us.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure, a real honor to be with these panelists, my fellow colleagues. As Julio said, I'm with Warner Chappell Music. I'm VP of US Sync and for Latin America. Our offices are based here in South Florida, but we also work with 5 regional offices throughout the Americas. It's great to be with you and look forward to sharing some thoughts.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Mari. And with us also from the West Coast, we have Eli Ponce.
Hey, thank you, Julio. Hello, everybody. My name is Eli Ponce. I am the director of A&R for BMG Music Publishing. I oversee creatively the US Latin and Latam based out of Los Angeles. And it's good to be here.
Thank you, Eli. And over to my right, what is my right actually, is David Weitzman here with us today.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Weitzman, and I'm a partner at independent music publisher Primary Wave. We mostly focus on publishing legendary catalogs like Bob Marley, Ray Charles, Stevie Nicks, Burt Bacharach. And my role at Primary Wave is actually to source catalog deals and close deals.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Thank you. And last but not least, my good friend Jorge Mejia, President and CEO of Sony Music Publishing.
Thank you, Julio. Hello, everyone. I'm very, very happy to be here with you all today. As Julio said, I am President and CEO at Sony Music Publishing for Latin America and US Latin. I oversee our Latin America and US Latin operation with offices across the region. Very happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jorge. Well, let's start with an open. I'm going to ask a question specifically to each of you, but I wanted to start with an open question. Obviously, we've had a lot of changes in the business for the past few years, accelerated by last year, of course. And I just wanted to talk about what are some of the new trends and growing music publishing revenue sources that you're seeing that you've seen lately, in the past year. Open question. Anyone can answer.
I'll start with that one. Definitely, streaming is the biggest news story, I think, for everyone in the music industry. The pandemic year has meant that some sources of revenue have decreased, while streaming has actually shined through. So it's a story that I don't think is going to change across the region. Streaming is doing, and digital is doing very, very well.
Yeah, definitely. Mari, I've seen also that sync has been growing, in the past year. Do you have any comments you want to say about that?
Well, I mean, I think with the advent of all this amazing original content and people going to streaming, TV and film series are really bustling out of markets out of Mexico and Brazil. I think there's great opportunities even in the US Latin landscape now that things have kind of subsided a little bit in California. We're starting to see more productions coming back, which is exciting. COVID is also really kind of put more of a spotlight on a lot of video games and placements in that space. And also the TikTok, which, all of these new platforms that kind of just been coming up and really kind of taking the forefront in sync, at least.
Yeah, it's funny, but like, as far as video games are concerned, people are even watching other people play video games now. It's become something important, and now video gamers are actually even creating playlists. It's really growing. Does anyone else have anything like specific to say about that, about video games?
It's interesting. The sort of subgenres tend to do very well with our client base. So we represent such a broad spectrum of emerging writers from all over the world that we have had some. We get a weekly report of the latest genres that are successful, and we've had some growth with our client base in Africa recently. And we've noticed new genres and new subgenres that are emerging, and some of them do come from the video game world too. And it's really interesting to see that development. But I agree with what Jorge said, that the digital has been a great benefit for us, and the stability for the last year as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Streaming is the thing. Ellie, I wanted to ask you, as far as like collaborations, and your approach to putting writers together, how do you set them up, and what recommendations do you give songwriters as far as these collaborations are concerned?
Well, the thing is that we're seeing now more and more opportunities come up for our Latin producers, writers, and artists to collaborate internationally with other artists. They've always been there, but now it's more to do it, and vice versa, like them trying to get into the Latin market and us taking our Latin producers to the Europe market, China, Korea, and work on that. And I think it's been great, and I think that having someone to represent you and go into these conversations when it comes to the collaborations to make sure that your rights are protected is very important when you start involving other artists that normally will want to bring their producers in to give it a little touch, and then it just starts getting more and more people involved in the song. And but it is great. Like I think that it's something that I like to think of it as outside the box kind of thing. I look at a country writer and I'll put it with like an urban producer from Colombia, and I'll see what's going on, and let's see what's happened. And I've started a lot of my collaborations and sessions actually focused on sync. Like we've taken a lot of briefs, and I think sync for us, like for me specifically, has opened the opportunity, well, to get to understand the roster that I inherited when I came into BMG, because when you inherited a roster, obviously needed care, and as I grow, I want to make sure to know the strengths and where I can continue to develop the roster that I have. And sync has been very helpful with that, because I've seen how they work, and I've seen how it's been for them, and especially now in during the pandemic, that it's been so many remote sessions and starting to understand. I've seen sessions where it's a Korean writer with a Colombian producer, and when they're working on the Zoom, it looks like they're in the studio. Then I have some that send me the beat and I'll write to it. Then I have some that don't even want to get on Zoom, and it's all via email or WhatsApp. So it's a matter of I try to remove the brackets out of what the equation of creating is, and I'll just put people together. And obviously, if there's a vibe, we go at it again. If it's not a vibe, let's go to the next one.
Sure, absolutely. And, song splits, when you have collaborations and you start getting a large number of songwriters on a song, sometimes the splits could be confusing, right? There's so many different splits, and there's so many different ways of looking at splits too. Everyone has, like, I think I feel sometimes I hear a different rationale every day. In my case, how do you guys attack this or approach this, as far as making sure that your writers receive their fair share as far as those collaborations are concerned? Anybody want to answer that?
Well, in my case specifically, I look at every split sheet, every song as a new opportunity for the writers, and then specifically producers that have a lot of content in their hard drives, or writers that have a lot of stuff, and it's just songs that are going to sit there. And when you create the collaborations, you want to get them together. And one thing I tell my writers is, obviously, you have to protect your shares, and you have to make sure you're compensated fairly with what you have. But an artist told me this one time, and he said that it's better to have half of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. So when we get on that mentality, I explained to them, as like, the bigger the song is, you're gonna have to split your shares. You're gonna have to. It may go down, but let's look at the grand picture and see where the song is gonna get, and that's how I've been kind of like encouraging my writers to move with collaborations.
I think too, like right now, working in this global environment that we're in, I can give you an example, like this wonderful song that came out this last year called Jerusalema. And there's like 16 different versions of the song. And you have to like really sort of follow who the writers are, who the composers are on the different remixes and styles. And I think that it's really important, like you're saying, Ellie, that, you know, composers really sort of be careful, be mindful of what their percentages are and when they're changing with other composers, because those opportunities for sync, when they happen really quickly. And in order for us to commercialize it, we got to have, you know, things in a row. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just like to add to that the most important thing about splits is getting to a set of splits that add up to 100 and that we can all move forward with. If we're not in the session, obviously we are agnostic until such a time as we need to get involved to try to help a particularly difficult situation. But we do try to encourage, for the most part, that agreement and consensus be reached, and that things get registered quickly, especially, you know, in the digital world. You want things registered as soon as possible. So ideally, splits are a priority for any writer, so that the publisher can actually go out and collect and really properly get your work synced and everything else.
Absolutely, Jorge. Sometimes the practical approach is the best one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's got to be communication between the writers in the room and when they leave the room.
Absolutely.
And I could not echo that more. I mean, that at the scale that we are operating in, with, you know, a certain like emerging artist and emerging writer profile, those decisions, we see the impact of the conflicts if those decisions are determined at a great scale. And, you know, so my mantra usually, and everyone on our team's mantra, is don't leave the room without those decisions having been made, because we want to be there to enforce it, all the points that you all just made.
And as an up and coming writer, if you're put in a session like this, you might feel intimidated when you're with other bigger producers and other writers, and you don't want to touch that, and you're a little more receptive of what you're doing. But those decisions that you make and how you deal with those early splits can set a precedent on your career as a songwriter in the future when those hits starts coming in. So it's really good to educate and be very knowledgeable, or have the people around you that can help you and be the guidance when it comes to settling those splits.
Yeah, it's a fine line between killing the vibe and actually talking about these number things, but it's important enough that they should be addressed at some point, maybe in a quick, jokey way or something. I mean, I'm speaking to people who are maybe starting out, who might be part of our audience. It's important to address it, or at least have somebody within your team address it.
Absolutely. So, David, I have a question for you. You know, one of the hot topics in the music industry has been the price that's paid out for the catalogs, for music publishing catalogs. And, you know, even like in Billboard, Burke Mercuriadis was just on the cover, you know, and, you know, he's somebody who's definitely has been promoting, you know, investing in these music publishing catalogs in this way. And I think that even as far as the Latin sector is concerned, Shakira, I think, did a deal with them recently. As far as you, David, do you see this growing in the Latin sector specifically, or have you seen this kind of movement? How do you see it?
I think the Latin sector is really just like the other sectors of other genres, in that you're going to see high multiples on classic evergreen catalogs. Like if Julio Iglesias was going to sell his catalog, or another big Latin star, he's going to command a high multiple. Especially the older vintage catalogs and superstar catalogs generally go for more. So I don't see Latin really being any different. It just depends how sort of ubiquitous it is, the vintage of it, and yeah, I mean the multiples in that space are high, just like everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's also like a growing trend of, also as far as this is concerned, well, having writers even negotiate their writer shares. That's something that didn't happen a lot, so much, back then. So how does it, as an open question, how do you guys feel about that? Are you guys would you counsel a writer to look into selling a writer share, or is it something that you might be against?
I think that's go ahead.
Okay, there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer to that question. I don't think it's very dependent on each writer's situation and reason for selling. As a general rule, you do want to ask the writer to be very clear as to why they would sell anything at all to begin with. It's a very big decision, and a lot of times writers may feel, as the years pass, 10, 15 years down the line, after they've sold, that maybe that wasn't such a great idea. I've seen that. So the question is not so much about the writer's share, but about just be very clear as to why you're selling, when you're selling, and just be very clear that it's the right decision for you at that time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
David, I was going to say it's a very personal decision for each writer, each seller. Most of the deals that I'm acquiring these days, artists or writers are selling publishing, writer share, sound exchange rights, and often masters and or master royalties. And obviously with the multiples being high these days, they're getting a bigger check to sell across platforms. At Primary Wave, we generally try to partner with them and not have them sell 100%. So they're still seeing some upside and seeing the cash flows post-sale, like maybe an 80-20 or 50-50. But I guess to your question, it's really a personal decision, that what people want to sell, if they want to sell. Jorge kind of really nailed that, but I'm kind of re-emphasizing that it's just up to everybody. And, obviously with a lot of older writers, they're thinking about estate planning and that kind of thing. And we're seeing, you're seeing so many older writers these days sell, whether it's, Stevie Nicks or a Bob Dylan or a Neil Young, or, I can go on. But I think for a lot of younger writers, it's a tougher decision if they want to, sell or not.
Yeah, interesting. That's interesting. Jorge, I have a question for you. Since you handle both U.S. and you handle Latin America, and so obviously you're dealing with a lot of performance societies, So one of the biggest mistakes I think that independent artists and writers make is not registering, with these performance societies. Whether in the U.S. or whether they live in Mexico, and they don't register with SACM or SADAIC in Argentina, or whatever the case is. So why, for these, independent writers and people who are new to the business, why would you say it's so important to register, with these societies?
A society is your first point of contact as a writer, as a young writer. It's the place that will typically advocate for you as a writer. It's the place that will teach you about some of the rights involved in songs. Mm-hmm. And it's a place that will start collecting money and making payouts very, very quickly after you are able to register, as long as you are out there with songs getting streamed and so on. Societies are certainly important because they do collect a certain type of right that publishers do not always collect, and it depends on the territory and so on. So I would definitely recommend that you you look to a society as one of the first points of contact as a writer, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Even like almost, I mean, before even looking, I think for a publisher, you should be looking for a society and you know, and working with the society in your territory. You know, absolutely.
Again, there's no, so sorry, Maria. There's no roadmap. There's no roadmap. Sometimes you happen to get a big hit, and you have a publisher, and then it's a question of, okay, what society should I pick? And then that's also an option. But once you're there, you should definitely have a society at some point, at some level, fairly quickly within your career. Sorry, Mari, go ahead.
No. I just wanted to add what you're saying, Jorge. And it's important if you're from Chile or if you're a writer from Colombia, that you also try to, include your music with the US composing, the US societies. And the reason why is because when we're working with clients like Snapchat and TikTok, a lot of times they look for songs that are registered with ASCAP, CSAC, and BMI. When we say, oh, there was, these other societies in Latin America, sometimes they may not select the song. So I think, being sure that you're a part of the US ecosystem in the societies is really important as well, especially writers out of Latin America, if they can. Obviously, the first point is your country, but also think about the US.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I see a lot of writers who live in Latin America, like, register with their society in their country. I see that a lot. And then like for X, whatever country it is, then they affiliate with a U.S. society. I've seen that a lot. I don't know if you guys have.
Yeah, I just want to say that's not as popular within the local societies. So if you go to Mexico, that's not really advocated within the Mexican society and so on. So just it's available to some writers, those
Mm-hmm.
writers who have the ability to have significant releases in both territories and so on. But it's not the prevalent rule, and the societies would probably not love it if we advocated that. Just
splitting territories is a very touchy subject on that one. That is very true. But if let's say you're in the US and you happen to be a Chilean writer and you have a big hit in Chile, it's really important you let your US society know, so that then, because they represent you for the world, they make sure they contact the Chilean society so that payments come through, because from when the international society pays the US society, it's a little lagging than a domestic earning that you have. And vice versa. It's really good to keep them in the loop and let them know what it is that you're doing. And if you're in Saraik or if you're in Psycho and you have US, but you are represented by the world, by that country, it's good for you to have a relationship also with the US society, because they can represent you indirectly and send you your payments to your society. So the more you're in contact with them and the more you let them know what's going on, the more you're in their head and the more that they can go and make sure that they're collecting on your behalf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting with digital space and how global music is and how now it's you can hear it everywhere. It becomes these kind of decisions that a writer makes becomes an issue. If you're all of a sudden your music takes off in another territory, and then that's when I see it become an issue. At least from my perspective. Yeah, definitely. And so as far as how do you say the separate writer shares in these societies and how they work, does anybody want to explain how they work? Let's say for somebody who's registering their songs with a society.
What do you mean by the separate writer shares and so on?
Well, how the writer and the publisher shares work within a society, when you register them.
Well, maybe I could answer another question if that's helpful, and then we can take it from there if that's okay. So Latin America, and I think this will be useful for listeners. So Latin America societies in general collect on performance rights for the most part. Publishers will collect on mechanical rights. There are some territories like Argentina where the society collects all of the rights, performance, mechanical, sync, and so on. Also, in Latin America, some societies will collect mechanical rights on behalf of some of their writers. In the US, it's only performance rights. The societies will collect only performance rights. As far as the writer share, could you clarify that question a little bit more, Julio? So we can.
I mean, you're answering my question. You're answering my
Oh,
question.
okay, good.
You're answering my question. So that's great. That's great. So now let's talk about film and TV.
And just one other thing, Julio, I think what Jorge was
Molly.
describing was like that each country and each society has a different framework and playbook that for our companies to all interact with in our, you mentioned, I think, I can't recall exactly how many offices you have, 27, 30. I mean, it's to operate independently in each country and to work within the restrictions that are set by the governing bodies or the societies, and all in addition to the digital services that are so important to our businesses. It is really, we are in the most complicated center of our industry. I want to give us all a kind of a recognition of that we're here and trying to solve these problems, and to help our clients access all of their revenues. It's really not an easy task. And I'm so grateful that we have a chance to communicate with everyone about that.
No, absolutely. So, going now to film and TV, how important is it for the master rights now and the publishing rights to be controlled by one entity or not? What's everyone's point of view as far as that's concerned?
I'll go. I think that that really comes down to budget. I think there's a lot of TV and film productions that have low budgets, and if you can do one-stop shopping, that's really helpful because it's usually going to be cheaper. But I mean, most songs are split up between various rights owners, and it usually works if someone wants to license it, unless there's a writer that doesn't want to approve, or a publisher who charges double what everybody else is charging. So I don't think it really matters. But I think it matters in relation to lower budget productions. It just makes it easier for them if one party represents both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm sorry, like, for example,
no, go ahead.
Big legendary writers, some big legendary writers don't want covers made of their songs or re-records. So you always have to work in tandem with the labels to ensure, you're not, excuse the phrase, bastardizing the track. I think it's important to keep that integrity. But I think there's a lot happening with the independent music scene, which is very exciting. And a lot of folks are just releasing amazing tracks. Definitely have your deals in place with publishing if you can. But in this new world we're living in, I think it's to the advantage that you have your own masters if you can.
Mm-hmm.
And also the sense of urgency sometimes that a lot of these production companies and the people that are using the music have. They may go with they have a song that they really like, but then they have to contact 5 people, 6 people. One person hasn't responded. A week passed, and it's still holding. They will go with the second one that they like the most because it only takes 2 phone calls to get it cleared. Mm-hmm. So, and then that's why publishers we call each other. When you're independent, it's having the ability to, when you're a master and you go to your distribution company or something where you control everything, and there is companies that will pitch your music, and when it comes, it's easier for it to be clear if it's all controlled by one party, or at least it's very clear as to who's the owner, and it's just one phone call, because sometimes the urgency is the matter. They'll call you today at 11 o'clock in the morning that they'll need a song for tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning. And how do you do that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, on the one hand, you say, well, one stop is, it's easier, right? Obviously, and quicker, and as David said, cheaper, right? To license. But I don't know one hit song, I think, that's in the marketplace right now that's a one-stop license, at the same time. So, right? So I just wanted to point that out. you know?
Yeah.
Um,
So that's why, like, from the independent artist aspect, that's why that is very important. Like I was saying, that you go in and you register to your PRO, and that you have everything in your master clear and you have everything ready, because, you know, as an independent, you have to look for different revenue streams and ways to make money into your career that is not necessarily that single that's going to get in the top playlist or get millions and millions of streams. So as an independent artist, it is very important to have everything clear, so that if your song gets picked, you get it. Like right now, all these Netflix shows and all these platforms that are using a lot of more indie, more niche specific records for different territories, or that's why it's important for me to encourage them to have everything in one-stop shop for indies.
okay. But I mean, but in the end, like the key is really the quality of the song and what it brings to the production, and you know, in the end, that's what we go for, no? I mean, if you think about it. So anyway, so on to another topic. You know, with the pandemic, what are some of the ways that you guys have seen that writers have adapted themselves to the pandemic? Obviously, there's been a change of the way that they work and the way they approach songwriting. So what have you guys have seen?
Zoom sessions, which before, you know, they were like, it was really hard to get writers to agree to do Zoom sessions. Now there's a lot of them happening, and it's a lot of times writers say that it's not the same thing and so on, but a lot of great songs are being written that way. I think as we go back to normal, we'll start being much more in person again, because it's really hard to substitute that. But the Zoom component, or, you know, Teams or whatever you use component, is not going to go away altogether. I think we'll still be meeting, and writers will be talking to each other that way for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think some of the things too that Zoom has allowed us is to really get up close and personal with writers and producers. And I think that's an exciting thing for a lot of the producers who don't normally get the spotlight if it's just the writer. I know at Warner Chappell, we've been doing a lot of different types of series, and, you know, creating sizzle reels, being able to invite clients. I think it's important to nurture those relationships and keep it happening, you know, until we're able to get back to normal again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And as far as like the pandemic and stuff, I mean, what are ways that you can, you know, boost your, you know, that writers can boost their publishing earnings? You know, what are some of the things that they can do? Especially, you know, I'm just thinking about independent, you know, writers as well. Molly, do you want to answer that? How many, you know, what you think?
I mean, I think what we observed last year, especially, you know, just around April and May, was that there were a large cohort of emerging writers and producers who clearly hadn't taken care of this aspect of business that you all have been really describing so well. Mm-hmm. And now there was time and there was some space. Sometimes we joke about the work that we do at Songtrust being a little bit like doing your taxes, you know, sort of getting it done, and you have to get the registrations done, and you know that this is a part of the business that perhaps you haven't delved into as much to understand how publishing rights work, and that there was that space. So we've been really pleased to see that, and we've tried to support that with, you know, many virtual experiences and educational opportunities, many just like this, to sort of meet people where they are, and that's been really great to see.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, what other like DIY services that you guys have seen, you know, independent writers do? Like maybe, I guess, open up a YouTube account, you know, push your songs through social media, utilizing, I guess, TikTok and things like that.
Yeah, TikTok has been huge. I mean, I think it's been a way to really reach a different market, especially a lot of the young, you know, millennials and the Generation Zs. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just hungry for content. Snapchat has kind of entered back into the space as well. It's just important to be really visual, be the miner of your own look and feel to composers, especially independent scene. And if you can, cross-pollinate in different languages. You know, if you need to do songs in Spanglish, or you need to do songs in Portuñol, you know, try those things out. Don't just just feel that your box is just your music in your country. Music now is going everywhere. It's exporting to the world.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about mechanical royalties and how they work. And obviously, we have the new licensing collective, the MLC, which kind of like, affects to how mechanical royalties have traditionally been collected. There's tangible mechanicals, and obviously there's digital. And so obviously the MLC affects the digital. Does anyone want to talk about that and describe a little bit, how that's worked? Go ahead.
Yes. So traditionally, royalties have been paid out by digital service providers to each of the publishers, and there's lots of royalties that are held up because the song doesn't have data attached to it, or they can't find who the publisher is, or even who the songwriter is, and so on. And so this initiative was created so that there could be a central repository of data that the digital service providers could use in order to be able to pay income through to the creators of the songs. It's just getting started, and we're all expecting big things from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We definitely are, and we're hoping that this is going to be a large growth of income, for all of us, as publishers and obviously for our writers. And Harry Fox has always been licensing the tangible for so many years, and now we have this licensing collective, to assist us in doing so as well. So excellent, great guys. So I wanted to go, and there's a couple of questions here that audience questions that I wanted to ask. And the first one I want to ask is from Juan from Bogota. He's asking, what is your advice to put together a writer's camp or session? And I know like a lot of you have done this before, right? Created song camps. I have as well. So who wants to go? Ellie, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I think that it's the dynamic is very important when you're putting a writer's camp and a session. And as an organizer of a camp, you have to be aware of what's happening in the rooms and understand if it's not working and move around to make sure that it's happening. Like, for example, if we're going to put a camp together, and you're putting a camp together for an artist, for a major artist or a label who's looking for a single, it tends to be a little bit more of a tense environment for some of these independent songwriters, because normally what do they get? 1, 2, maybe 3 singles that they will pitch to their artist. So the collaborative aspect versus the competition aspect of it sometimes can cloud what they're really creating, and they'll just go with the formula of this is what we got to write because this is what the artist wants, and maybe what the artist wants is something completely different. So when you're doing a camp, it's first of all the chemistry is organic. I have learned a lot about a lot of writers and producers, not only for mine, because when I put camps together, I bring in Sony ATV writers, I bring Warner Chappell writers, I bring Cobalt, everybody works together, and we put together a film and TV camp, and we brought in 45 briefs, and we divided it in 5 rooms, so they don't have the pressure of we need this one single. We have this stack of briefs, and let's all create. So collaboratively, you can see, oh, this guy is very hard, very, very hard on melodies. These beats are incredible. This guy does the top line. This guy's for translating. So you get to know how the writers work, so that way then you put them together. But the best thing is to have a focus and know what exactly it is that we're getting together for this camp. And based on that focus, because if not, it can go all over the place, and then the camp ends and you just had a great time, you partied a lot, but then you don't have songs. So I think being very specific on the goal and the target of what you want to achieve from the camp is very important. and realize that just because you don't have chemistry with this person, you don't have to work with them. Let's move on to the next one, and that's it. The business, and maybe you get together the next month, and maybe you had a better day, or the person had a better day, and then you click and you make a hit record. So you have to be very real and aware of what is going on while the camp is happening to be successful at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like in my case, when I put together song camps, definitely when there's like a common goal, if it's project oriented, if it's for a specific artist, or even like if it's a sync song camp, which we've done also, and but you're writing for a specific sync usage even. I think those are definitely the ones that have worked the best. I've I think tried it all. I've tried song camps at first where it was just getting people together, but it's really when you have it focused that you're successful and you see measurable results. You
have a great time on those, because those are great parties when when people get together, but you might not get the songs.
Yeah, it's true. Anybody else work on Mari?
No, I was saying we did a sync camp last year that was focused with briefs. I think it's important that, like what Eli was saying, it's important to have that structure so you know what type of styles you're writing. If you need vocalists that are female vocals or male vocals, what the hook needs to sound like and feel. And if you can get music supervisors involved as well, I think it just really sort of makes that project a little bit more exciting. And even for composers, it makes it interesting to write, because maybe that's not the way they normally would write. So it kind of gives them another set of skills and how to focus on briefs.
Yeah, and I mean, song camps are also like a great way to meet other writers too, and network in a sense. It's not just about sometimes even just writing for that particular project, but meeting people that in the future, you can potentially work with as well. Anyone else has experience with song camps? David, have you done song camps for your writers?
Yeah, when I was at Olay, which was a company I worked at before Primary Wave, we did a bunch of song camps, and we had some success with them for sure at sync and with artists. And I think to help crystallize them and focus them, it helps to have actually the artist at least come by for a little bit, a music supervisor, a music exec in the room come by for a little bit. I think that creates like the kind of excitement that Mary was talking about. Certainly helps, and if you can get an artist feeling like they're a part of the process, even if they're not necessarily writing, and they're more apt to use the song.
And be very careful who you let in the writers camp, because if, let's say, a friend came with the producer and is sitting in the couch and he said that this changed this, then when the split comes, you're gonna say, "Oh, I was in the room," and then you have another writer that's gonna show up. So you have to be very
100%.
protective of the environment to make sure that it doesn't get messy later. Crystal clear.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And serve the right food.
I serve the right food. That's very important.
Yeah. And make sure also. Go ahead, Jorge.
No, we've done all kinds of camps, and really the best thing is to, as Ellie said, and Mari and David and everyone has said, is to curate it and to really be clear on everything that you're trying to accomplish out of the camp, and curate it from who's there and the food that you serve and the kind of music that you're looking to get out of it. And definitely bring, if you can bring the artist who you're writing for, or the music supervisor who's going to be, that brings up the energy immediately in the camp.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's super important. Picking who's going to be in the camp is key, no doubt about it. You want to make sure that you pick the people who are going to give you the right chemistry.
Totally. And I guess nobody mentioned it, but because maybe it's obvious, but in the room, you want to make sure you've got people with complementary skill sets, a beat maker, a top liner, all that kind of stuff, and just make sure you're not, putting people in a room who, they both have the same strength. It could work against you. So it's really important how you massage that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have another question from Carla from Mexico City, and Carla's asking. She says, "There's a song I like from the '90s. It was not a big hit, but it's someone else's song. I want to cover it, but add lyrics and make it my own version. Okay. Do you think it will be hard to get the original song's publisher to give me a writer's share? What do you guys think?
Yes.
Yes, you think so?
Yeah, it depends on the song, obviously. And really, the question is the other way around. You need to ask permission in order to be able to release that if you're modifying the original song. So if you're taking a song that already exists and you're modifying it in any way, you need to ask permission. And within that permission, you can say, like, I would like to get a percentage of something. And then it's going to be up to the original songwriters and publisher to determine whether they think that that's a good idea or not. Again, depending on the song, it might be difficult.
Are you willing to want to have to negotiate, because a lot of writers aren't going to give their share, right, Jorge? I mean, you got to come with a story.
Well, if you don't have leverage, if you're a new artist and there isn't a massive campaign around the song and all that, well, very likely it's very unlikely that the original songwriters will want to grant any shares. But again, there's no map, and it all depends on the individual cases and the individual songs.
Yeah, and I would say that the big sensitivity is, would the original songwriter accept a lyric change? A lot of songwriters are proud or precious about their song, and they don't want a lyric change.
Yep.
And sometimes they even, like, for a lot of writers, they'll object to certain things. Like, let's say if the change is sometimes political, if it's not something that they socially accept or whatever the case is, they're like, oh, we don't want, if it's about drinking or whatever it is, or drug use, they'll be like, okay, well, we don't accept it. So it makes it hard sometimes.
But I have to say, in this world of COVID that we're living in, covers are becoming really big. I mean, there is a lot of interest in the world to be able to do adaptations in Spanish or Portuguese, especially of big US songs or big UK songs. So we are living in that space, and I think it's important to try. Don't just give up. I mean, be able to make those contacts and try to make those recordings happen and make those adaptations happen if it's really something that you're passionate about.
Absolutely. Molly, do you see that as well? Like,
yeah, and I think what two things jumped out to me. What you were just saying, there's sort of like, have the story. Why is your proposition something that might be considered? And then what is the leverage? And those are the themes that we try to help early career songwriters and producers think about anyway. Like, how are you, if you know how your business works and you're managing it, and you can be a good partner, whether it's a company like ours or a large publisher like the others represented here, knowing the business improves your leverage in the conversations always throughout your career. And I think to the questions earlier around when you would sell your repertoire, then that also is involved. That you have an understanding of when those are the right times to make those kinds of decisions. I think those are really important themes for our audience to think about.
Yeah. It's funny. Well, Jorge is going to relate to this because Jorge is a great classical artist, so he knows. I see these things as almost like variations on a theme. When I hear some of these things, but obviously in popular music, that's how I see some of these interpolations. But they're fun to listen to also. Now I want to go around to each of you, and I want you guys to tell me, what you guys are looking forward as far as the next year. Where do you see the business going, and what you're personally excited about? That's really what I want to know. I'll start with you, Mari.
Well, from a creative side, I see a lot of biographies happening with a lot of Latin artists and composers. I see there's a lot of storytelling about social injustices, or talking about the roots of the music. I see a lot of original content, and being able to pair that with great treatments and storyboards, I think is something really exciting that we're going to see more and more of in the coming years. I think Latin music is, we have extremely exciting stories to tell. And I think there's a lot of, different great 20th century figures that we can tell stories about, maybe, and through music, Frida Kahlo's story. Like, I think there's going to be more of this sort of original content happening. And then I also like to think that, live music will come back again someday, so I think that the reimagining of live music and how that's going to look and feel is going to be very exciting to consumers all around the world. And in Latin America, with all the great shows and concerts that happen, I think people are just waiting for that moment when we can all be back together.
Great. Interesting. That's awesome. That's awesome. Molly, what about you?
I'm really excited about the new markets that the digital services are opening in. So to see more monetized activity globally, I think is really a wonderful thing to marry with the consumption numbers that we're seeing and the number of new works that are receiving consumption, that the long tail is not so long, that there's a sort of a middle tail of creator and writer and producer and artist that is seeing real revenues. So I'm excited to see that the sort of as the growth and stability of our industry.
Okay, great. What about you, David?
Couple things leap to mind. One, I mean, obviously we're in a really good space as an industry these days with, the streaming pie growing, with, things like Spotify coming online in India. And, so there's like growth of international. And then there's obviously been some positive developments legislatively, like the MMA, the Copyright Board Act. So those kind of two things there are making our industry like a very healthy place. But the thing that's exciting. And then the other thing that's exciting to me is really sort of these new ideas that are coming out that take the songs and really give them new life. Like, for instance, I used to work with the producer Timbaland, and he and Swiss Beats created the Versus series, and it's been celebrating all these great artists battling their songs. And the other day they had D'Angelo just perform his songs with a DJ, and it was a great way to take that format and move it forward. And another example that leaps to mind to me, and it's related to Primary Wave, was, we've talked about TikTok a few times, and there was that kid who was, drinking his cranberry juice, and the Fleetwood Mac song "Dreams" was being played, and it was a completely authentic moment. And we wound up buying, Stevie Nicks' publishing, and she wrote 100% of that song, and it was great for us, but great for Fleetwood Mac. They've been in the top 200 of Spotify for months, and they're the only classic rock band in there. It's not Zeppelin, it's not the Beatles, it's Fleetwood Mac because of this moment. And so you take things like TikTok or Versus and these new ways of giving songs life. It's just it goes to show, one, you got to have great songs, and two, that people are just creative and can bring new ways to expose them.
No, absolutely. I love Fleetwood Mac. And Ellie, how about you? What how do you see it?
Well, I think that they brought a great point. Like, we just saw it the other day when Anthony Hopkins was dancing to Elvis Crespo, and it just all of a sudden Elvis Crespo went back up to the streaming numbers. So it's a great way to bring back life. I'm live music. I'm very excited for live music to come back. I want to, can't wait to experience that. The rush is something that I really miss, and we've been. The industry is very advanced, and we're growing, and we're expanding, and we're reaching numbers like we've never seen before. And the fact that legislative, we're actually catching up, and then eventually is going to be there where it has to be, that is something that has me very excited. And with all this stuff happening, the newer opportunities that are going to come up right now, the tech fitness, the world of fitness is opening up, and it's creating all these new opportunities, the Bowflex, the Nordic Tracks, all these like subscription based that are using music, and the more opportunities, and the way that the video games are changing as well. Like Riot Games, they have yearly Olympic that they do in a stadium where they put 100,000 people and they do a show and they have their own virtual band, and the band is completely made up and is doing 250 million streams in Spotify and stuff like that. So all these opportunities and being able to just be around and put our little bit of knowledge and get involved in it is actually very exciting. You know, it's yeah, because we think we're advanced, but right now, I mean, we're just starting. Like right now is when it's really gonna take off and get to where we have to be.
Absolutely, absolutely, definitely. And Jorge, how are you feeling?
Well, I think I'm going to echo what the optimism that people feel as Latin music is being heard around the world. I'm excited about the blurring of boundaries. Essentially, Latin artists singing in Spanish at the Grammys, not the Latin Grammys, the Grammys. Latin artists singing in Spanish at the Jimmy Fallon show, happened last night. Out of the top 50 in Spotify global charts, 10 songs are in Spanish. They're Latin songs. And this is amazing for our industry. The fact that we're really breaking past all the boundaries and we are truly becoming a global force. That's what I'm excited about coming out of the pandemic and for 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, no, that's definitely. I mean, in my case, that's also one of the things I'm excited about. You know, just the expansion of Latin music, how Latin urban music also has really like taken off, and now it's evolving, and now you're starting to hear like other influences in it, and like you're saying, Jorge, how you hear like even artists that are not Latin artists, you know, approaching music in the same way, utilizing the same rhythms and the same musical concepts. That's fantastic too, and I'm also excited that we're figuring it out. You know, we had like the whole digital streaming has really, I think, been a great thing for the industry. You know, I just want to say that. You know, it's really helped us figure out how to get our music across, you know, through the internet. And you know, I think it's just obviously there are a lot of little battles that get fought within all this, but I think that, you know, slowly I can just see that we're all coming together. The MLC is an example of that. We're all coming together and really like creating this, you know, well-oiled machine that's going to work and benefit everybody, especially our artists and our writers, and that's what it's all about in the end. So anyway, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody on the panel. You know, I admire all of you, and it's been a great conversation. I look forward to seeing you guys in person as opposed to Zoom.
Soon.
Very soon.
And I want to thank LAMC. LAMC is fantastic. You know, the way that they've done this virtual conference last year was great. This year, you know, as well, and it's glad to be a part of it. And I'm honored that to be here as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you so much,
everybody.
Take
Nice
care.
to meet everybody.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.